Hello, I'm Caitlin.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Chelsea, and we'll be showing you our presentation on shifting powers.
The Mughal Empire emerged from two powerful ruling groups and became a combination of Persian Timurid influence when Babur, a Timurid prince, expanded his territory into South Asia.
Babur is the descendant of Genghis Khan, second son to be exact. He is credited with the start of the Mughal Empire in 1526 and was the original ruler of Timurlane, the Timurid Empire, since he was a child ruling from Fergana, a city in Uzbekistan. Because of his jealousy over prosperous cities in the south, he assembled an army to conquer Samarkand, but resulted in failure. Despite this loss, he managed to conquer Kabul in Afghanistan.
Because of his consistency in conquering cities, Babur was able to expand his empire very quickly. He had many military advantages, such as a strong and agile military. However, he died in 1530, letting his son take over and continue the Mughal expansion.
His son Humayun was supposed to expand the rule of the Mughal Empire and is credited with the start of the empire in 1526. Humayun's rule lasted from 1530 through 1556, but he spent 16 years ruling in exile in Iran. He was banished to Iran by Sher Shah Suri in 1538 and became the ruler again in 1555 when Islam Shah Suri, Suri's son, died in 1545. But sadly, Humayun fell down the stairs in his library in 1556.
Continuing on with a bit of background information on Sher Shah Suri, he was a pretty remarkable military leader. Although he is not a descendant of the Mughals, he is credited for many of the civilizational advancements during his reign.
Sher Shah Suri legitimized his rule by instituting many processes of standardization, including land taxes, a postal system, a national highway, trading routes, and currency regulation of the rupee. Before his death in 1545, he patronized mosques, forts, and other key structures. Akbar came into rule in 1556 and is regarded as one of India's great rulers. In addition to greatly expanding the empire, he also unified greatly distinct elite and religious populations. Akbar used the existing Delhi Sultanate ruling policies to help the expansion of India. The strongest of these were the Rajputs, which assisted Akbar in India's expansion.
Instead of relying on Islamic symbols for his religious court, Akbar believed in Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, Jesuit, and Zoroastrian influence. Within these religious teachings, he crafted himself as godlike, and because of his influences, Akbar removed Mughal tax on non-Muslims of the empire. However, he died in 1605, letting his son Jahangir take over.
Jahangir ruled the Mughal Empire from 1605 to 1628. He followed his father's footsteps and was equally curious about religion. His wife, Nur Jahan, has a special influence over the empire and their relationship, for she is the only Mughal woman to have her name struck on the coin of the empire. Furthermore, Jahangir has been able to maintain a healthy empire through many accomplishments.
When Jahangir died in 1628, his third son Shah Jahan took over. He set his sights to the conquest of the north and central subcontinent, specifically the Deccan Plateau. Shah Jahan also undertook the construction of magnificent architecture, like the Red Fort, Agra Fort, Jamia Masjid in Delhi, and the Wazir Khan Mosque.
Shah Jahan came into rule in 1628 after his father Jahangir died. Shah Jahan set his sights to conquest the north and central parts of the subcontinent, specifically the Deccan Plateau. Shah Jahan set his authority over the empire by undertaking the construction of some of India's magnificent architecture, like the Red Fort.
Following on, Shah Jahan ordered the construction of the Taj Mahal in the city of Agra as a tribute to his wife Mumtaz Mahal. It required many expensive materials to construct the entire building. The palace symbolizes beauty, love, and fashion. Unfortunately, Mumtaz Mahal died before the Taj Mahal was completed. Instead, it became a tomb for both Shah Jahan and his wife on the day of their death.
Shah Jahan's son Aurangzeb violently imprisoned his father in Agra Fort and claimed authority over the empire. His official rule began in 1658, and some historians speculated that his turn to more conservative religious policies might attempt to re-establish his right to take control over the empire from his father.
Aurangzeb, along with banning music from his royal court, also reinstated tax on all non-Muslims, except for Hindus, Jews, and Christians, of the Mughal Empire that Akbar had abolished 100 years ago. Aurangzeb struggled greatly during his rule, so he is credited as the weakness of the Mughal Empire.
Sher Shah Suri created an initial administrative system with hierarchy of authority. Akbar was working with local elites and crafted the Mansabdari system. A Mansabdar was a local elite and responsible for providing the Mughal Empire with military might. These Mansabdars received salaries for their loyalty, and the royal family maintained complete authority while assuring the power of local elites.
Despite the success of the hierarchy, the Mughals still faced challenges such as Shivaji Bansal and the Maratha chieftains of central and western India. Shivaji was one of Aurangzeb's rivalry and was unwilling to submit the power of the Mughals. In addition to these problems, tensions increased with the Europeans who controlled trade ports. Because of European competition, the Mughals' economic power lessened. For example, Shah Jahan felt that the Portuguese were impeding upon their power at Port Huli.
Now we will learn about how Europe moves in, such as the Portuguese and one of their famous explorer, Vasco da Gama.
The Portuguese were the first to establish trade routes from India to the rest of the world by sea. They used the Carza system, which was similar to a permit system that required all trade ships and goods to go through the Portuguese. Vasco da Gama was the first Portuguese explorer to arrive in India at Calicut. The foreign presence in Calicut brought new religions and cultures like Syrian Christianity and Judaism. Calicut became a global metropolitan.
Calicut was an important trade city because it connected three main world regions. One, the Arabian Sea, the Mediterranean, and Europe. Two, the Indian Ocean from the Persian Gulf to India's east coast. And three, the Indian Ocean that stretches to Southeast Asia and China. Because Calicut was such a booming trade city, by 1515 Portuguese controlled all trade, specifically the spice trade. The Portuguese made their ports exclusive to just the Portuguese by not permitting them be used by non-Portuguese.
In the map shown on this slide, it shows several routes that the Portuguese set up. For example, an important trade city was Calicut, which connected three world regions. In addition, the Portuguese also controlled trade operations in Goa and Sri Lanka. By 1515, they controlled most spice trades, which went around the southern tip of the subcontinent. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to reach India. In fact, Vasco da Gama was the first Portuguese explorer to arrive at the port city of Calicut in 1498. However, upon arrival, he was not greeted well, for he had to fight his way past the Muslim merchants of Calicut in 1499. In 1502, he led a crew to Calicut to avenge the massacre of the Portuguese explorers there. Then, in 1524, he was sent as a viceroy in India, but later fell ill and died.
Because of increased competition among the Europeans, the Portuguese began to decline. Thus, the East India Company rose to replace it. By the 1600s, the Dutch had taken almost all of the Portuguese settlements. The Dutch commanded Coromandel Coast and gave them direct access to trade with Southeast Asia. The Dutch brought prized Gujarati textiles to Southeast Asia, and pretty soon it became very valuable.
In 1600, Queen Elizabeth chartered the East Indian Company as a joint stock company. Another result of this charter is that it also established the East India Company as a monopoly for 15 years, thus banning all other British trade companies from coming to India. 15 years was enough time for the East India Company to establish dominance over Indian trade. Because of their dominance, they made huge profits, squashing any competition.
In 1612, the British fought the Portuguese in the Battle of Swali. The British won the battle, claiming dominance over Indian trade. In 1616, Thomas Roe, an ambassador to the British, worked with the Mughals to receive permission to buy land and build factories. Over the next decades, the East India Company earned profits off of bringing textiles from India to other parts of the world. Then in 1640, the British bought a large amount of property from Madras.
And this is our works cited page.
That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. My legs fell so asleep.